Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. Welcome back to the show. We took a little bit of a hiatus there. Thank you to Thanksgiving and the wonderful holiday season that has commenced. I'm here for it. Miad, are you a seasonal person? Are you a
I am.
wintry holiday person?
Yes. After Halloween, I feel like it just kind of sets the tone, right? Now how all the holidays are coming up, and yeah, it's great.
It is great. It also means the end of the year and crunch time, which we are all 100% feeling. It is Q4, y'all, and we are here for it, and we are here with you, and the struggle is real. So let's take a break and settle into learning something new with our good friend Miad. Before I get there, a little housekeeping. If you are here with us, say hello. I am hanging out in the comments. We got Hotness and Leisure Studios. Trevor Van Warden is with us today. Hello, Trevor. Always lovely to see you. If you are here with Trevor and Miad and myself, please say hello. We'd love to see you, comment, and join in the conversation, which we are excited to have. It's going to be a good one. We promise to stay on task. We are not here to sell. We are here to talk about the struggle that is real, depending on what it is, and then unpack a real opportunity to help you with your marketing efforts. So we're going to get into that. I do know you, Trevor. Before I dive in, a little bit about our guest today. I have been I said this in my LinkedIn post, but I have literally been on the edge of my seat for this one because I have a lovely database that I've been sitting on for a few years now. I've been building up, but it is a hot mess. And if you were with me sitting on a database, a CRM that is a hot mess, and this is going to be the show for you, and Miad's going to help us unpack that and repack it up in a way that is helpful and useful, and it's going to be amazing. Miad has 17 plus years of experience in marketing with a proven track record of bringing new business to market. She's a dynamic, transformational thought leader working at a cutting edge of marketing and product management, senior stakeholder engagement, and compelling strategy development to drive multi-million-dollar growth and sustainable brand visibility at a global level. She's a notable she has a notable capacity for defining and translating challenging business goals into groundbreaking direct and digital marketing solutions. And it's underpinned by an aptitude for revolutionizing internal operations, structures, and processes, which is all going to come into play today to align marketing performance with class-leading industry standards. She has superior leadership capabilities, promoting a team-oriented culture that is conducive to inspiration, target attainment, and continuous improvement. She is currently the VP of Marketing at SynSaber, and we are going to understand how she takes all those beautiful skills and how she's applied it to SynSaber and companies before. And it's going to be, I know, yes, Trevor, it is a lot, and it's fantastic. And that's why we're here today. And what a blessing to bring such wonderful, wonderful people on to the show. So Miad, that was a synopsis in your own words. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing my job for me. I appreciate you. But why don't you tell us your story, right? This is like a synopsis of what you do and what you're great at, but how did you get there? What do you do now? And what was your journey to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, from now on, I'm going to have you introduce me, Carrie, anywhere I go. Please join me and introduce
I do a
me.
little voiceover and I'll just follow you
Yes,
around. It'll be
please.
great.
No, but starting my career in marketing, it really started off in event marketing. So basically doing the traditional marketing in-person events and trying to do the packaging of products, the packaging of printing, and doing all the good stuff back in the day. And then I started to find digital marketing really interesting. So I volunteered to be an intern. So I really was like, you know what, I'm going to push my ego aside, and I'm going to become an intern and work with somebody who's super, super well respected. Steve Wiedemann, I don't know if some of you might know him. He's in Orange County. He does a lot of digital marketing. And so I really sat next to him for a full summer, and I learned everything I could from him, because I really wanted to be a marketer that can have a full understanding of how things operate, Because if I can be hands-on, then I can lead my team in a more effective way. If they have questions, I can actually be able to answer them. So that said, I went down the digital marketing path, and then with that came along some job opportunities in cybersecurity and tech, where I was yeah, able to start startups with some awesome people in the past, and we took the company from self-funded company from basically the four of us to a Fortune 500 company as the second fastest growing company in California. And and we did that again with another organization. And so um, my point is that I had to learn a lot of different elements in marketing, right? I wasn't able to just focus in one area. And at one point, I was like, am I going to be good at anything if I'm all over and if I know a little bit of everything? But it has actually been super helpful, because I'm able to connect with the different departments and figure, because I have been on both sides, I'm able to look at both sides of, whether even at one point I was actually leading a team of developers. So that said, I have good understanding of how the different departments work, which has helped me to build up systems that can bring the teams together, to then work together in a way that it's efficient and we all have good data, and we can do our jobs better. So hopefully that is helpful.
Yes to all of that. I think we all want to do our jobs better, and that's why we're here. Hello, Mike Cross. Thank you for joining us. The Forrest Gump wave. I'm here for it. And I figured out that our LinkedIn user here is Adam Coach. So thank you for joining us, Adam. What a great crew we got kicking us off, and excited to hear your questions as we dive in. One question I had for you, Miad, about your journey before we get into more of the conversation is cybersecurity is a bit of a walled garden. You don't just sort of like happen to find your, or maybe you do, but then, we all fall in love with the industry. You mentioned it was a very short clip of just like, and then I started in cyber. Can you give us a little bit more of like how you found the industry or the industry found you?
I think the industry found me. I was actually had just moved here from Houston, and I was just looking for uh, a job, right? Trying to start over here in California, and I came across this job posting, which Adam Couch here on this call is actually someone I worked with in that company, and so we. Really, that's how I came across it, and then from there I learned a lot from the team. I learned a lot from uh, just really sitting there and actually understanding the terminology and really fully being able to speak to it. Was obviously at first challenging, but then I fell in love with it because it's never boring. And yeah, so that's what excites me about cyber, and that's how I entered.
What's not boring for you? When you say it's not boring, what is that? I think we all
It's
have our different.
always evolving. You think you've just figured out how a new regulation is, and then a new one comes out, right? So then you have to learn
Mhm.
about that, and how do you market to it? How do you speak to it? And so that's sort of why I fell in love with it, because it was never like the same old same. You had to continue to learn, and which is what I love. I love learning new things. So it's perfect for me.
You said something that sort of sparked something for me, and so I'd love your take on it, being in the cyber world. I've we've been in cyber now for 6+ years at MKG Marketing. We've been paying attention to the industry as well as some other industries, which is why I feel like I'm able to compare. But it feels like cyber's paving the way in terms of how we need to market, period. Like, it's a tough audience to begin with, but then I feel like other industries other buyers are sort of following suit. They're maybe a little bit of a lag, but they're all like, yeah, stop selling to me, this is nonsense, I'll make my own decisions, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Do, do you feel like that's one of the beauties of cyber, is that they're sort of setting the stage for how we should market, not just to the cybersecurity world, but like to markets in general?
I do. I'm glad you brought that up because um, one of the things that, as a marketer, you start off, you think you can just do ads and you can do all these things, but really, a lot of these things don't respond the same way as maybe some other industries. And I agree, some other industries are following the same trend. So it's all about connecting authentically with the contacts that come in. And that's what I love about it, because we don't just sit there and put together a piece of content just to send something else and I can say, okay, check, I've done my job, right? I sent 5 emails out. Instead, I have to sit there, and it's a little bit of psychology, right? You sit there and you're like, what does he care about? What is his problem? Like, what are the struggles in this context uh, in his industry, right? So, and then having to understand where they come from, what the struggles are, and that's what I love about it, because it's more of building a relationship rather than just let me just bombard you with all these things that I think I'm great at. And yeah, so that's why I think I love this. And I think more people should market that way.
I hope other industries are tuning in right now,
Yeah.
because yes, and to that. And I have a lot of questions before we dive into the email side of it. Before I get there though, what's a challenge you're currently facing? What's hard? We're all human and it's Q4. Life is hard. What's specifically a challenge for you?
I would say at this point is trying to understand um, who is really the ideal customer profile, right? One of the and especially with product, as you change and the market evolves quickly too, so you just when you think you've figured it out, who's my ideal customer profile or who's the right target personas, then you read up something else and then you're like, okay, well, shoot, and then you have to get new contacts into the CRM system, and then they're all excited about your product and they weren't even on your customer profile list, right? So now you're like, okay, am I just totally off? So it can feel overwhelming. So I think that's one of the things that's always going to be a struggle. At least I think it's one of those things you always have to go back to and reassess and question. And so I would say that's one of the biggest struggle I'm facing at the moment. But I'm grateful that I have an awesome VP of sales that I work with, who really has been supportive in bringing information, which helps a lot when the two worlds work together, the marketing and sales. It's beautiful because it
That is
makes the job a little bit easier. Yeah.
and unusual. So,
Unusual, very unusual. Yep.
so what makes your partnership between you and the the salesperson people? How are you aligned? What's your is it a goal? Is it the persona? Is it just general, like we're all in this together? What's sort of the glue that's pulling you both, or the magnet that's pulling those two service lines together?
I think we share common goals. It's not that sales, you have to close this many leads, marketing, you have to bring me this many contacts. It's we don't even attach a title. Okay, where did this contact come from? Sales. Where did this one come from? Marketing. And then there's this fight. Well, marketing didn't give me enough contacts, and then you have this sort of back and forth, right? And so what I think has made our friendship, or it is also a friendship,
I love that.
work relationship work very well, is that we have come together and said, okay, these are the programs we're going to build. I know on my back end how many contacts I've sent to him, but that's not something that we put in front of the CEO or everybody else. We're just sharing one Excel sheet that we say these are the contacts that are currently in opportunity. However, between sales and marketing, we have regular conversations, and we'll get into that whole dashboard and how the CRM system has been super helpful with that. And we're able to then look at the contacts that are coming in through marketing and talk through it as peers, right? Like, okay, this isn't working. Okay, then what do you think works? And then it's just a very calm and effective conversation. And so, but in front of the CEOs, we don't put the numbers of this is how marketing does it. Here's how sales does it. We sort of in the back end communicate and work things through and figure things out. So that way there isn't that bad blood, you know?
These are the
So,
opportunities.
yes, period. And then we know in the back end how to make those, take an SQL to make it an opportunity and work together on those things.
I love that. I think that's so helpful to not place blame or who's doing what. We're all in this together. Let's dive in to how you sort of approach the CRM. And you mentioned a dashboard and sales. Let's start at the ICP because we keep talking about how much this has changed, but I feel like this is the sort of the crux of where you start. Am I jumping the
Yeah,
gun there?
no.
Is that
No, it's actually perfect. It's like you read kind of my thoughts of how I was going to go through this, but no, that's perfect. So let's just start with like when I joined an organization as head of marketing. What I like to start is understanding the overall company strategy. And this isn't a marketing strategy or a sales strategy. This is overall company strategy. So we come together as a company, we say, this is kind of our goal. All right, marketing and sales, how are you guys going to execute against this goal? We come up with that and then we say, okay, so who would fit the current year one, let's just say, what type of persona would fit the state of the product, right? So product could be at stage A, and we just define who could benefit from it, and we sort of define the personas, the ideal customer profile. And again, these things evolve sometimes on the monthly, but at least having a starting point helps us to understand where we should start, and then as we evolve and things change, we'll make those changes as we go. But that's where we start with identifying sort of the ICP, right? And we sit down and really look at the product first before we even say who is the right ideal customers or personas. Um, because if the product is at a place where perhaps a company with 500 plus doesn't we're not there yet. So we start with the product, then we kind of work backwards from there.
Let's talk about the product. I feel like what we're sort of dancing around is the product market fit, right? So you start with the product to understand what the product can do, and then figure out who it can do it for.
Yes, yep. And then we identify who we think, right? Sometimes it's also who we think, and then we all agree that we're going to launch some activities, right? Some marketing activities. We'll run some ads against these personas, and we all need to be on the same page that these are meant to also inform us. So once, especially if you have your proper CRM set up, you're able to quickly learn, okay, we're learning that we're getting some other audience coming in that could be better for this ideal, for the current state of the product. And so we start to begin testing and doing some of that, and then we go back and review the ideal customer profiles we initially said and see if we need to add a few more personas in there. But without a proper CRM, this would be extremely challenging to do.
Yeah, and I love how you're saying it changes depending on like how the product evolves and into the market as well. And you're saying so many important things there. I hope everybody's like leaning in because it is this learning curve. Like what I feel like I hear you saying, Miad, is just because you put some marketing efforts out there to this potential audience doesn't mean you're necessarily going to see results right away.
Right. And in my opinion, there are plenty of marketers out there that respect, and they do it in different ways. But in my personal experience, if we tie ourselves to a one ideal customer profile and we just get stuck there, right? Then we are not doing the company a favor. And we have to be very flexible. And that's where your head of sales is actually super helpful to support the marketing efforts with really the market research, right? So as an example, typing up notes from the sales calls, let your marketing people read every single note or record it. Use some tools like, Gong or others to really record these calls so that the marketing can listen and take away little keywords that the clients or customers are saying, because in the end, we can start with an idea, but ultimately the market is going to tell us what they want and how they want us to position the messaging and who's ready to buy the product today and who's not. So just being flexible as a marketer.
And using the customer's own words. Like, I
Yes,
feel like that's what you're saying. Like,
absolutely.
let's
Yes.
use the language of how our customers are talking about what problems we solve and how we solve them and what the product does to get them there.
Yep.
Use their words. And you can't do that without listening to, Gong or Fathom or something like that. So yes to that. Oh, so what's the next step then? So you understand the company's goal, marketing and sales have come together with a strategy, and you've sort of figured out who your initial persona is. And so your go-to from our previous call and where we really wanted to land with this conversation was first looking at existing contacts. Is that
Mhm.
accurate? Did I capture you?
Yeah. Yep. Good memory, by the way. It's been a while since we spoke about this last, but so yeah. So after understanding sort of the initial, and I'll keep saying initial because be flexible that things will change. Um, Strategy is put in place, and you sort of have your initial ICP and personas. That's when you really know what you're even looking for. So if I go in there and I come on and I start looking at the data in the CRM, what am I even looking for, right? I can say, wow, we have this many organic contacts coming in, but is it the right person for us, right? We don't know that. And so that's why the strategy is number one. And then, then digging into your CRM system. And I have this thing where I do whiteboarding, right? Where I ask my question, the so what question, right? So we have this many organic traffic coming in. So what, right? Because you will get that question from a CEO. So what? We have this many organic traffic coming in. Well, out of this many organic traffic, we were able to get this many marketing qualified lead. And out of this many marketing qualified lead, we were able to convert 20 of them to a sales qualified lead, and 2 of them were opportunities. So it tells a story, right? And if my CRM can't give me that story, or it doesn't allow me to answer this so what question, then I'm afraid that it's not doing its job, right? That's where I go back to the drawing board and um, start developing sort of the framework of how I would want to lay it out, the flow chart, and then get to work with the rest of the company to build that flow chart, because it's not a marketing job. It's a company. As a team, we have to build this flow chart.
Okay, I have 2 questions. The first one is, how do you define a qualified lead? I feel like everybody has sort of a different definition of like what qualified means. So when you're looking at an MQL, what's that for you?
For me, does it align with the would sales look at that lead and say, yes, this is the right person, and whether they're ready for it today or not, right? Maybe marketing needs to nurture that contact a little bit more. But ultimately, if sales says, yes, I can work with this contact, then, or even looking at your ideal customer profile too. But at the same time, we don't want to be too stuck to that, because again, if you're starting, especially with startups, right, we want to be flexible. And then I can kind of sort of start to understand what's the right MQLs, right? Then I say, okay, which ones can you take today? Which ones do we need to nurture? And that's when a BDR can come in and support some of those activities. Or if it's a very small team, the salesperson himself has to also be mindful. Not everybody is ready to be contacted yet, right? That's why sometimes I think a BDR is more is better, because sales might say, I'll just take it and work it, and then we might burn that contact and we can't do anything else with it.
All right,
So,
two things there. You sort of answered my second question, which was right person or right time. And a lot of the times it's the right person, but they're not remotely ready. And so when you're talking about
right.
BDR, a business development, um,
I would say
uh,
SDR actually. It's
SDR is probably better. Sales
yeah.
development.
I always
Uh,
confuse the two, but yeah.
I know. Sales development.
Right.
And that a normal, not a normal, but like more of a down the funnel, right? Like salesperson who's pushing a buyer has a different mentality than an SDR, right? So
Right.
let's just pull those apart for a second. And I did a really poor job of defining those. So you help us out, Miad. What is
Sure.
the difference between these two roles? And you sort of mentioned one for nurture and one for sales.
Yes.
Is there more to it than that?
At least from my understanding, right? And I might not have all the answers, but to me, SDR is the one that's responsible for inbound leads qualifications. So they're just sitting there reviewing the contacts, and then your BDR is really responsible for outbound lead prospecting. So that those would be like, um, they're more like a business development, right? They're really on this, mostly like just the sales side of things. Like, if sales team is going out there bringing contacts via Zoom Info or other platforms, they typically are in charge of it. But sometimes, and depending on the organization, they might only have one person that's doing all of it, right? So it's I think those two. That's why they kind of bounce back and forth as far as roles go, depending on the company size. So,
Yeah, and I think that comes back to something you said earlier that really struck a chord with me around authentic relationship building. And as marketers, when we're sort of tasked with, I'd love your opinion on this, but traditionally, as marketers, we're tasked with more of the surrounding, the awareness, the, capture 1,000, knowing that we're going to get like 10. And
mhm.
then sales is sort of more in that role of taking those 10 and weeding them down to those, 4 or 5 that are necessary. But it feels like the ground has sort of shifted underneath us from a marketing perspective when we're also being tasked with that authentic relationship building. And it's not about quantity as much as it is about quality. Um, so how does this, when you're thinking about marketing and the BDR and the SDR, we're sort of working together in your experience, is that sort of what you're seeing? Marketing is more of that broad awareness, BDR is more of that relationship cultivation, and sales is more of that selling, or is it getting blurred these days?
Uh, Both, I think. It depends on the company, right? It really depends on the company, and how the uh, top down, right? Like this, how do I say this? Sort of the push that they're getting, right? Like, how does the CEO really understand what's really how we need to go about this, or is it just sell, 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 and then there's that panic, right? So it really depends on the organization, and so yeah. So that said, one of the things that helps is really sitting with your SDR, BDR, and saying, look, if you see these signs, right, that means they need to be nurtured. So we have to then sit together as a team and decide what are those signs, right? If they're XYZ, then go ahead and tag them as nurturing, so that marketing can then take that on and nurture them in an authentic way, which, and BDR supports a lot of that, because um, then they can go ahead and tag that contact based on, like, in the back end, for example, when I set up CRMs, one of my requests is that each contact is tagged with a persona, so that when the contact comes in, I understand, how can I speak to this person? What's their persona? Are they an IT person, or are they more of less of an IT person? Because if I speak to you with all these IT acronyms, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. And so it's really working with your BDR, and kind of guiding them and saying, these are the types of people that are ready to go to sales. these aren't yet, and you'll know when they are ready when they do XYZ. And then we have to set those requirements so that they are so clear. That way we don't get, let's not get a lot of unsubscribers, right? Yeah, we can send out a bunch of email. Yeah, we can get all these contacts in, but we can also quickly turn them into unsubscribers. Then we can't touch them anymore. So let's work them.
I think this is leading beautifully into something you mentioned earlier, which is your flow chart.
Yeah, so I can share that. Let's see.
Oh, I haven't done this before. I'm going to let you, and I'm going to, how do I do this? Oh, goodness. I'm going to do a presentation here.
I think I'm sharing.
Okay, so hold on. Oh yeah, I see it. Okay, we're gonna add that to stage. Look at us go.
Awesome. So this is my actual ones are very complex. So I try to make this as simple as possible, because when I showed the actual one to one of my team members, they're like, "No, this is going to be super overwhelming." So those make more sense when people are actually sitting in the room and they're working with you on these things. So I just tried to simplify it, right? And how I would go about something like starting to really define how your CRM should be set up. And this is why it's important that you have a marketing strategy in place. And at first, right? Because you first need to identify what are even the marketing channels that we're going to be using, so that you can say, where are our potential contacts coming from, right? Could it be advertising? Could it be SEO? What channel are they coming in from? So then we set these, so we're able to actually even get started on building this flowchart. But prior to that, I always recommend sitting with your team and identifying what are the life cycle names, what do we want to call them? If a salesperson is bringing in a lead on using ZoomInfo or other tools, their life cycle stage should be different than when a marketing brings a lead in. So that way we can kind of pass them to each other back and forth through automation. Because if we set up the same thing, the same names, automation is not going to know the difference. So we'll get there. So anyways, we first set up what is our lead status. So for example, if we're calling a person, it's a contact that just came in from sales, a prospect, and we're going to give it a lead status open, right? Then automation can already handle this for us, right? As soon as a contact comes in, the automation will say, okay, I'm going to tag this open as a lead status. And then this guy gets a notification. Hey, I saw it, I got it. And then from there, they look at it, they review it, they say, all right, this is bad contact. So then we can do something with it, right? Maybe they get bad emails or just no longer the person is there. If we can't find their email, we'll do bad contact. If it's somebody that they decide, you know what, it's a great contact, but I don't think we're there yet, whether it's a product side of things or something else, then we can set nurturing so that we can send it back to marketing. Or we move it along to sales qualified. So meaning sales can start working with it. And I don't need to go through all of this, but really this system goes through from sales, then what happens, what if then, you come out of nurturing and they actually schedule a demo from nurturing, what happens next, how do we tag them? And all of these taggings triggers the automation. So that way we don't have a bunch of contacts sitting in the CRM closet, right? You have like thousands of contacts that are just sitting. Yeah, they're just sitting there. No one has touched them, and then we're all wondering why the ads aren't working, right? Or this other campaigns we were running aren't working because we just didn't have that level of visibility. And let's use automation to gain some of that visibility. And I have to be honest, like that, building this process, it's time consuming. It requires everyone's buy-in from the company to say, we will go a little slow at first, and we're going to build this so that we can go faster in the future. And a lot of CEOs, it's hard to get them on board with something like this. in my current position, again, I'm lucky I have this opportunity to had the opportunity and the space to do it, which has been super helpful for us. Yeah. And so that said, with this system, we can do a few things. We can measure how long a contact sits between the different phases, and the automation does it for us. So if I can see that an MQL was passed to SQL, but they sat there for so long before anything happened, I'm able to actually even measure that, because otherwise, if we don't have the system set up, we're not even able to identify that, right? So that's just one example of many things we can do with this process once we put it in place.
Okay, a couple things,
Yeah.
and then we'll pull out of this, and I want to take a step back. Just so we all know how to read this chart when we're looking back at it. It looks like green is channels.
Yes, to channels.
And then the purple is
life cycle.
Life cycle. And then yellow is the trigger.
The lead statuses, which is the trigger. That's right.
Okay. Okay, so we can understand. And I think we also want to just be crystal clear. You said it earlier, but I just want to say it again. This is very, very simple comparatively to what a real flowchart might look like. And so if yours bloats and gets complicated very quickly, that's actually probably very normal.
Very, very normal. Actually, if I show you the other one, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't even look at this. But it's super helpful. So you can basically put this in front of any new BDR you hire or any new sales rep that comes on. They can just grab this and they know, oh, I'm here in this step. I know exactly what to do next, right? And people think, oh, I'm just going to build this when I'm bigger. At that point, you've already just have so many things in place that it's going to take way more time to try work backwards. So I highly recommend putting this in place. It's going to take time, maybe a couple months to really get everybody on board. I mean, not even, maybe a month and a half, but we feel like, it's too much, right? We're pausing everything else, but it's really not, right? I think it's going to actually give marketing good information as well.
And once you actually start capturing leads, then you actually can do something with them versus them ending up in a parking lot, essentially. So it's all well and good to capture leads, but like, what are you going to do with them?
Right.
And please do not hand them directly off to sales.
Yeah, no,
please
don't do that.
I think we're all in agreement there. Let's take a step back for a second, because I love that we've talked about the CRM as really negative, hard things like parking lots, because it's true where, leads go to die. I think it's one of your sort of comments. So when you come into a system and once you've identified your ICP, is it a matter of which do you do first? You set the flow chart up and then tag, or do you tag and then set the flow chart up? But I feel like there's like this connection that needs to happen. It's all well and good to make the flow chart, but knowing how to help leads through that. And if there are already existing leads, like how do you differ? I have a lot of questions in that. Let's start with the one around. You have the flow chart, you have a CRM. How do you bring these two things together to help those existing leads through the process? Or do you just accept that they're there and we just need to build that new? I don't
know. So if you already have, and that's, prior to this role, I was doing a lot of fractional CMO where I've seen a lot of that. You enter a CRM system and there were so many leads, and an example was like 50,000+ leads that was sitting there, contacts, and we didn't know what to do with them, right? So we sort of started to take a step back and look at set the ICP and say, okay, who are they? Then from there, we had to go about it at the same time, while the sales reps and the BDRs were reviewing them and seeing what's what. We started to work on this flow chart because we were on time crunch. We needed to get everything done, right? So as they were reviewing, they realized that, we can just, through automation, just select this thing and we know who's no longer, they've been sitting here for years and no one has touched them. And some contacts have gone bad. So you'll be surprised once you start digging, then you'll be like, oh my gosh, half of these don't even make sense anymore because they are, then they moved on or whatnot. But
emails don't work anymore, or so on and so forth. So
right, and a
so
lot of
clean up.
unsubscribers
Clean
and
up
exactly.
LCRM.
Yes, I like that. I'll see her.
Okay, so you clean up the CRM and you get down to the contacts that are priority. Okay, these contacts still exist. They're still their same companies, or maybe they've moved on, but they're in similar roles. And so then what?
So then you kind of reset their life cycle stages. So based on what you've defined in your in your chart, you go back and, as an example, in HubSpot, you can reset life cycle. So if they had been going through so many life cycles before, we reset those life cycles and start it over. We give them the new life cycles based on what we define. Okay, we're going to just going forward, we're starting over. The ones that we are bringing on, carrying over with us, we're going to call these MQLs. 10,000 are going to be MQLs. Half of them are maybe SQLs or whatever it is. But we have to make sure it's resetted, because when we begin to put the dashboard together, it's not going to look like, the progression that we're trying to get to, which is how many were MQLs. Out of those MQLs, how many became SQLs. Out of those SQLs, how many became opportunities? Because at least in my opinion, if you're measuring just how many MQLs you brought in as a marketer, you're basically throwing it over the fence, hoping that sales does the work, and that's it. You have to bring just MQL, right? But
Right.
it is as much your job to identify why they haven't turned into an SQL, so that you can fix it, but not that you're in trouble, but we can fix it, right? We can say,
Right.
okay, out of this many MQLs, I only had 500 SQLs. How come, right? And understanding why. Is it that my campaigns aren't working? Am I sending it to the wrong people? And that way you can correct it.
What messaging's working versus not working.
Correct. Yes, instead of pushing blame. And that's why I think we're all responsible for, maybe it's a product thing, maybe it's a sales thing, maybe it's a marketing thing, but it allows us to address the issue and see what's not working. And then sales also feels like that we take ownership through and through, and we're not putting blame on anybody, and that we're there. We want to figure it out as a team.
I think that's really important. It sounds like the CRM sort of the center of the universe for both you and sales in figuring that out together, and being able to pass those leads, through that life cycle. Can you just quickly define for us? You sort of mentioned life cycle and you pointed to it in your flow chart, but life cycle meaning like how many times they have to go through the flow chart in multiple ways before you disqualify them or you give up on them? Like, what do you mean by life cycle?
Right. Life cycle is just giving the quality of a contact a name. So, meaning like if I give this contact the life cycle marketing qualified MQL, that means that this is just basically tagging it as this lead is way more ready for sales to be worked, right? So that way we can sort of measure how many qualified leads we brought in. So we call that MQL, marketing activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then SQLs means sales is now ready. It's just a way of communication in our CRM system,
Okay.
saying how. I don't know if I'm giving you a good answer, but it's a
Yeah.
good question
No,
though.
it's the
Never.
life stage. It's the life
Yeah.
stage of
Yes.
where the
Right.
contact is in the cycle. So
Yes.
if they need to be in nurture, they need to like hang out a bit longer and learn more about us and whether they're right for us, or maybe they're just not quite in that stage yet of like needing this product, but like we're staying on their radar
Right.
versus actually actively researching, okay, oh, they're doing something. They're on our website more. They're downloading more white papers. They're trying to
Yeah.
figure out, like, they know they need something. They're just not sure if it's us yet. And then
Right.
actually activating a demo or something to that regard to say, sales, you want to be paying attention to this guy over here who's like now like You
Yep.
need to answer their questions as a human versus, our content sort of doing some of the work for us initially. So
Mhm.
it's the stages in the cycle in which that contexts are moving through. And unfortunately, I think your flowchart was a beautiful rendition of this. It's not linear anymore. And
Mhm.
giving breadth and depth to all the different ways people will come in and out of and back in and around and through before they end up at sales. BDRs and SDRs are a great way to help nurture and create those authentic relationships. But being very, very careful to not sort of scare people away with
Yeah.
jumping on the sales bandwagon a little too early, I feel like is really how your flow chart helped there. I want to talk about that for a second. Um, it's something you mentioned in terms of sales and marketing and BDRs and SDRs, and something you said earlier on. I'm going to say something that's maybe controversial. I don't know. We'll find out. People will ping us in the comments and yell at me
Yeah.
if so. Um, it's starting to feel like marketing as a whole needs to go back to basics a little in taking more of a awareness play. Like
Mhm.
we can be tied to outcomes. We want to be tied to those. We want to see like what comes down the funnel. However, in terms of how we engage with potential customers at the end of the day, it is marketing's role to surround and educate, which is not as lead focused as it used to be. See it, click it, lead it, buy it. Right? Like that, those days feel like they're over, and your flowchart demonstrated some of that. Is that is that am am I crazy, or is that
No, no,
accurate?
no.
What's your
It is
experience?
accurate. Yeah, no, it's absolutely accurate. Like we need to go back to the basics. We need to all wear, the same hat, right? We I cannot wear my marketing hat and say, I'm only going to do marketing. You are only going to wear your sales hat. We're all selling. We're all marketers. We're
Oh.
we are all doing the same thing. So let's go. And this is what I love about the practice of building this flowchart. It allows us to come together and be heard. So, what is it that you need? What is it that I need, right? I don't want to send this to
Mhm.
you. Okay, great. Why don't you want to send this to me? Because here's what it takes. So, yes, it goes back to educating your sales team or not educating them because they don't know. It's more like educating them of how you're thinking about your process and why it matters, right? And that's why it's crucial to bring everybody on and build this together as a company so that everybody understands how each department they think about the contacts so that you can go back to the basics, right?
And
And
before you start spending any media dollars.
yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that's the other thing. There were so many times that in my past roles and as fractional CMO, I've seen so many CRM systems that they were spending thousands and thousands of dollars, but the contact was just getting lost in the entire CRM system. But the data shows we had X number of conversion. So they're like, well, where are they? And then they're fighting, right? Because they don't know where things are
You
and they're
go.
not properly measured. And so you get that whole, then that's where all the well, you this and finger pointed happens.
Mhm.
So
Yes, and then that struggle becomes real. So I love this moment of taking pause. Hey, this is a great time of year to do it. It's Q4. We're all winding down.
yes.
People have
Yeah.
other things in their brain around how they're going to spend time with family and not get wrapped up in the drama, as well as making sure they have enough presents for their children. So while their brains are preoccupied with that, it's a great time to sit down and think about what are some of these challenges we're having with our CRM, with where people are in it? Is it a parking lot? Are they lost in the universe? Are they just on this cycle, this never-ending cycle that as it isn't actually amounting to anybody? Maybe they're not even there anymore. We're getting a ton of bounce backs and we need to clean up on aisle CRM. All of those things are potentially real. And now is time to tackle it so you can start off the year strong. So thank you, Miad, for walking us through your flow chart, through your process, starting at the ICP of where your product and your ICP are now, optimizing your CRM for that, and then building that flow chart to help move people through and making sales life easier. I mean, that's what we're here for as marketers. At the end of the day, we
Yes.
want to make sales lives easier.
For sure, and they should contribute in making our lives easier instead of us chasing them down for info. They should just give us the information, you know?
What do you need? Tell us how to
Yes,
make your jobs easier so you can make our jobs easier. And
right.
it's
It's the
secular.
circle.
Let's do this. It's a
Yeah,
circle of life. Let's do this. I'm
right.
so grateful for this conversation. I know our audience is too. If you'd like to learn more about Miad, where can they find you?
You guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you guys have any questions and you want to get further, dig deeper into this, or maybe you have a quick question of, here's what I have, and can you just take a look? I'm happy to do that as well. But yeah, reach out on LinkedIn through just direct messaging would be best, I think.
Love DMs. DMs
Yes.
are great. Before we wrap up here, Miad, you are more than a marketer. Can you tell us, in the last 3 years, the world has changed. We're all remote now.
Yeah.
Traveling is coming back. Events are on the come are making their way back as well. But for you, is there been any life-changing event? Are you traveling more? Have you picked up a new hobby? In the last 3 years, what's sort of been that big change, if anything?
I think for me has been traveling more in the last few years when I can. Definitely, I've been traveling a lot more out of the country because I did a lot of traveling in the US. So I try to get out and get a little uncomfortable, be in places where you don't speak the language and learn the culture. So I've been doing a little bit of that, um, and really just trying to learn how to spend time with family. And, because as marketers, you tend to just get stuck with your computer and you don't know how to leave it behind. So I'm trying to practice that. So hopefully I'll see more of that in 2024. So we'll see.
Favorite country or place you visited in the last 3 years since you're traveling more?
So far, it has been Spain, just because they're so calm and slow. It also has been helpful for me, just so I can just calm down. But yeah, no, it's been Spain. It's been wonderful, and they have so much, history and culture. It's been great.
It's so calm and slow.
Yeah.
Siestas for everyone. I'm
Yes.
I'm absolutely here for that. Miad, thank you so
Thank you
much. I'm
guys
so
so
grateful for
much.
this conversation. If you enjoyed this
Okay.
episode, thank you for listening. If you want to join in and subscribe, I have a channel Tea Time on LinkedIn. We also are across Spotify, Apple, so on and so forth. So be sure to tune in to next week's episode. We'll love to have you. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that scales brands through meaningful relationships, fueling their ability to push their mission forward. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. Music mix and mastering done by the lovely team here. And if you'd like to be a guest, DM me. Let's hang out. I'd love to have you on the show. Miad, thank you again.
Thank you guys. Great having you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.